Welcome again, good people, and thanks for joining us. I am delighted to be joined by Lee Welsh from Microsoft, the Azure Solutions Manager for the Microsoft UK strategic customers in manufacturing and resources. Welcome, Lee. Thank you so much for your time today. Pleasure having you here.
Absolute pleasure to be here as well, Matt, and really looking forward to the conversation ahead.
Absolutely. And here we are, things starting to return to normal. Super exciting for us all. Businesses getting back, manufacturing and resources, particularly been really, really challenging, hasn't it, over the last 15 months for those organizations, but so much positive, good stories to come. And certainly in the Azure space for those customers. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I can certainly reflect on that, Matt. I think the last year has clearly been difficult for lots of people, but especially, I guess, our manufacturing and resources customers. There's lots of sub-industries in that. I mean, discrete manufacturing, lots of factories shuts down, automotive industry, 97% drop in car sales. Aerospace and defense, hard hit with jobs. Even utilities have had a fall in sort of the business to business services, having to lean into vulnerable customers. And of course, the oil and gas industry had the worst year in oil history. So it's been challenging for a lot of customers. I think on the positive side, obviously the pharma customers have really stepped up with vaccine development and production. And actually they've seen some growth. So I think, yeah, across the board, Matt, we've seen some challenging times, but I think we've seen our customers react really well to that. We're seeing them return with resilience, and we're definitely getting into conversations with them now about how they're reimagining their businesses and reforming for the future. So it is time to look ahead now, I think, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think if we just build on that theme, working with the utility organizations, their focus on it is accelerating and leveraging the capabilities from the Azure ecosystem, from the analytics, from the transformation that can occur with SAP in that space. But I think if we just initially concentrate on manufacturing, I think manufacturing has seen some real challenges, as you highlighted, but actually that in itself, in terms of the reinvention, as you say, that the next iteration of manufacturing being more flexible, being more agile, those customers that can now see the benefits and want to take advantage of those benefits across discrete and other manufacturers across other industries, as we see this hopefully rapid recovery. If you take aerospace as one of those examples, if you take resources as the other examples, customers have got to gear up from being where they are today to suddenly being almost contingently back to normal. In some cases, haven't they? It's how you achieve that and how you then, support the organization, support the employees in those organizations, support supply chains to help evolve just as quickly. Real challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I'd be really interested to hear your expert views. I mean, what are Centiq observing as the main benefits of manufacturing customers moving SAP to Azure in particular? I guess that's your subject matter expert, isn't it?
It certainly is, yeah. So for those customers that have maintained operations through the last 15 months or so, for those organizations that we have transformed because they've had that ability, to continue trading or wanted to invest in their business, because they had the capability, they had lower dependency on production or could actually absorb the downtime, or businesses have wanted to invest ahead of the recovery because they know it's coming. Those organizations in moving SAP to Azure have saved on average 35% in their operational cost models. They've gained the agility of having, a very different mindset, a very different operating model, and the ability to flex resources. Think of SAP, reimagine SAP very differently, in that new context. They've been able to plug in, integrate, absorbed, connect, and work with the data they've had in their business to much higher levels of value through analytics, through the ecosystem of Azure. So we've had automotive manufacturers, downscaling costs using that agility and that flexibility as pandemic hit. Most of those organizations were taking anywhere between 50 and 60% of their resources out of commission, simply to save cost, but still leaving the business operational for the levels of production that were required, with the ability to flex up as and where we saw obviously various lockdown releases. So again, it was responding to that, but the ability to plan. we think about SAP on Azure very differently in manufacturing now, and much of that goodness is being shared with other manufacturers. Much of the flexibility in supply chain is now accommodating organizations in manufacturing, really plugging into the benefits that we're seeing. So, following successful migrations of SAP to Azure, how do you see manufacturing customers leveraging the wider Azure ecosystem and particularly analytics?
Yeah, look, I think it's been a really interesting time. So I can certainly, confirm everything that you've talked about there. But if I reflect on why our manufacturing and resources customers are kind of moving their SAP environments to Azure today, I think it starts with, Matt, they're really beginning to demand more from us as a cloud provider. I think, it's been clearly evident in the press that Microsoft rise to #1 cloud provider, particularly in the enterprise space. We've got a lot to offer now, whether it's building the world's computer, the coverage we've got on a global scale, the trust and security built into our cloud. So our customers are seeing that, and they're also seeing the 25 plus year history that we've had with SAP. The fact that SAP runs on Microsoft, and actually Microsoft runs on SAP as well. And of course, they see our partner ecosystem with experts like you guys on there. So they're really demanding more than just, hey, let's migrate our environment. They're really asking us to step up and talk about the SAP transformation as part of their overall digital transformation, and looking to drive business outcomes in line with their strategic initiatives. And I guess ultimately, and we can talk about it a bit later on, but unlock the ability to do innovation at speed and at scale. So it's certainly been an interesting time for us and our SAP on Azure customers. But I mean, you must be seeing that as well, I guess, following the successful migration of SAP to Azure. How are manufacturing customers leveraging, everything else we've got in the Azure ecosystem these days? And I guess particularly around the analytics space, it's interesting to see the shift move to more innovation than just, I guess, IaaS now, isn't it?
It is, and I think from an innovation point of view, it's been difficult to actually focus on the key metrics that organizations have wanted to build into business cases when it comes to looking at benefits of innovation. What we've seen is a maturity in the business case modeling as we've worked with more manufacturers when it comes to innovation. So if you actually look at the fact that we certainly in the first lockdown, we shifted into a rapid transformation of innovation cycles, and what was typically months moved to days. And lots of processes had to be heavily modified to accommodate that. Supply chains themselves for a lot of manufacturers changed literally overnight. Organizations that had obviously nationwide distribution systems were heavily disrupted. So we had to look at incorporating more local distribution and looking at ways in which supply chains could be widened to support that cycle. And innovation played a huge part in that process, as well as analytics. So looking at how we can look at areas of delay across those processes of refactoring supply chains, of looking at value chains, of looking at ways customers were engaging for information, support, feedback, understanding of products, or even because products certainly went short supply or no supply, how organizations could help facilitate and still fulfill orders for customers in wider ecosystems, required a lot of innovation and innovation cycles. And that's been maintained through the subsequent areas of lockdown. Certainly, we saw real pressure on international supply chains for lots of manufacturers. So again, how do we create more localism within those innovation cycles to help fulfill those customers, etc. An analysis for manufacturers where the stock obviously was within the supply chain itself, because certainly for automotive manufacturers, vehicle sales went in very different cycles. Aerospace innovation again was very different, clearly coming out of that, clearly with obviously environmental innovation that's going on right now. We're looking at cleaner ways to maintain the lower carbon levels, and clearly aerospace is a large contributor to that. So we're going to see the sustaining of that innovation, and that's very much what we're doing for customers, the manufacturing customers that we've migrated. If you look in the resources space, the utilities are looking at, how they actually create more analytical capability around demand and supply. Particularly as we've seen in parallel this shift to obviously renewable energy, and the oil and gas market has clearly been so heavily impacted. Fortunately, the price of oil has recovered now. Innovation is continuing, but those organizations are investing in a more balanced portfolio of renewables and fossil fuel and hybrid type technologies as well. So again, it's supporting all those innovation cycles. But you spoke about some of those integration features. Now we've seen the richness of Microsoft Teams and SharePoint having closer integration to SAP, and more global customers using more global Azure zones. Azure has the greatest number of hyperscaler cloud zones across the globe here. So how do you, and what do you see as the next major innovation for Azure for manufacturing customers?
Yeah, no, great question, Matt. And it's super exciting times for us, right? Because you're absolutely right. There's so much more to SAP on Azure than just an app migration. So I guess once we've got customers SAP core on Azure, if you like, that's really when we can begin to drive business value from it. And I guess that does start with unlocking the value of data that you've just been talking about. We've got some great solutions in the portfolio now with Azure Synapse, data lake storage, machine learning, and Power BI. So it's helping customers unlock insights from that data to make better business decisions is probably where we are right now. But we're definitely building into that, I guess, continuous security monitoring of the SAP environments is a big thing for our customers right now. And we have Azure Sentinel in order to be able to do that. And I guess the very exciting phase we will get to with customers is all about unlocking that app innovation, which you sort of talk about there with Office 365, with Teams, with Power Platform, even with LinkedIn and Azure IoT, the HoloLens capabilities. And everyone must have seen how the NHS have been leveraging that technology during the pandemic. And of course, GitHub offers an incredible opportunity to do app innovations with customers. So I think we've got some great examples of innovations we're driving right now with customers. We're involved in their Lab in the Future projects. We're building in cognitive services and so much more with them. So I think once we've got their SAP core on Azure, it's about unlocking the future potential together. And that's the really exciting part.
It is. And I think, for us, it's not just the innovation cycles. We're actually seeing the actual measurable KPI value of machine learning. So if you take resources and you take utilities, using those to automate, because they can at that scale, machine learning to really dynamically tell us patterns of resource consumption, obviously consumer demand profile changes, particularly important where you consider the electrification of the automotive industry, as another example, and connecting those together. And machine learning is going to form a major part for those organizations that have, accelerated their transformation to Azure. Those utilities that we're working with, they are embedding these technologies now, and the analytics are being fed through into dashboard, and automated reactions, within the grids, within the supply chains can then be fed through, in terms of actually scheduling and balancing those resources. And we know that to be a very significant challenge there. If you look at other manufacturing pools using machine learning to actually innovate and capture data from IoT or other sensors to actually feedback dynamically, understand actually how products are evolving, how products are being used. If you talk about hybrid car technology as examples, or even office technology, where we're going to have increased pressure for sure, to drive greater efficiencies in heating and cooling systems, which are going to be so critical for people returning to work. So again, using those technologies in the Azure ecosystem to really accelerate that. and create that integration from a collaborative point of view. So businesses are working more remotely. That is going to be the business of the future. So how we use SAP as this organizational tool, create the modernization, which we're very much driving with customers, and it's a journey. There is no one destination for any customer that we're working with, but it's really talking about that richness and that goodness that we can bring out from both data and the modernization of systems. And again, all the standing building blocks are there. Working in a different operating model, a different mindset, a different way is something that we embed from customers right at the beginning and continually optimizing that. And that's a key theme, of what we're seeing across manufacturing, whether it's manufacturing organizations themselves, their value or supply chains, their partnership pools, or indeed the platforms that they're running their business, connecting their business with, and in the future as well.
Yeah, look, you just provided some great insights there. So look, as we come towards the end of our time together, what are the 1, 2, 3 reasons why someone would want to partner with Centiq to help simplify and accelerate the benefits of Azure in your mind?
Yeah, really good. So it's very difficult to pick the top 3. I would say there's 9 or 10 right now. But if you,
Love it.
yeah, if you really ask me to say, the most frequently, so the most frequently highlighted areas are agility. So looking at businesses to dynamically change and to learn at the same time and embed that learning as quickly as possible. And the flexibility of working in cloud. Okay, so you can actually test, you can innovate in cycles that are days, even hours for some organizations. You can get those releases out there, you can test that with customers, you can get dynamic feedback. That flexibility to change the platform. So no longer do you have this long wait chain, this delay process in changing or testing SAP applications. We can automate it through the tiers within minutes, if not hours. Even in pharma, even in highly compliant legislative type organizations, we can achieve that with corporate governance. And I guess the area is optimization. Businesses are seeing great opportunities. Cloud gives you the ability to both flex and optimize at the same time based on demand. And we are going to see uncertainty moving forward. And I think those 3 factors work together. So agility, flexibility, and optimization. And with the experiences that we've had as a great Microsoft partner, with the breadth of the ecosystem that Azure is offering and continually evolving with customers, that delivers on all 3 of those key themes. How about yourself, Lee?
Well, I guess, first of all, I love working with you guys and partnering in our customers together. It's pretty amazing. Look, if I think about the reasons why I guess customers move to Azure for their SAP workloads, it starts with the fact we're building the world computer, and that is pretty empowering, if I'm honest. I mean, you mentioned the regions that we've got. We've got 60 plus regions globally at the moment, which is more than any other cloud provider, and we're adding new regions all the time. I think our Azure foundations are really important. We kind of have the taglines, we're going to be future ready, we build on our customers' terms, we operate hybrid seamlessly. And I think one of the really important ones is trust your cloud. Trust and integrity in a cloud infrastructure is really important for our customers. But I guess it's more than just the technology, right? You've got to build in the non-technology stuff like enterprise skills initiatives, cloud skills challenges, and things like the cloud adoption framework, which helps us working with partners like yourself to get customers to realize the real value of it. But I think the real reason for me why customers would want to move their SAP environments onto Azure is what we spent most of our time together talking about, driving that business value, if you like, getting that SAP core on Azure, unlocking the value of data, and creating a platform to unleash the app innovation that really is the game changer for customers in the market. So yeah, that's the reasons why I think customers should move their SAP environments to Azure.
Yeah, and I guess the one thing I would add to that, more so, and we see all the hyperscalers in the industry, the depth and support of the Microsoft partnership and the culture, right? This is a journey. The transformation has to be sustained. The uncertainty needs to be managed. And you want to go on that journey with an amazing global innovative partner like Microsoft, like ourselves, to support that. And you will maximize the success, maximize the value from your journey. No doubt.
Completely agree.
Perfectly. Thank you so much for your insights and time today. As ever, always a pleasure talking, catching up with you, Lee. Really appreciated. Thank you.
Likewise, Matt. Thanks for the invitation and the opportunity to talk.
No problem. Cheers.